talk a little bit about cryptoeconomics. It's a term that we hear often, and it really is fundamental to the use of blockchain in the market. So what is cryptoeconomics? Another way that it's been described is mechanism design or reverse game theory. It's where we start with a desired outcome and we work backwards to design a game that will reach that outcome if everybody acts in accordance with their self-interest. Okay, that's the basic definition. Another way of thinking about it, and probably more practical and concrete, is that it's the use of economic incentives and cryptography to design new kinds of systems, applications, and networks. It's about building things. It's about mechanism design, where we combine cryptography, mathematics, and economic theory. And it's basically taking economic incentives into account. So think about Bitcoin. That's exactly what Bitcoin is. Right? We're using cryptography, strong cryptography that we talked about in earlier sessions, to dual cryptography, public-private key, but also economic incentives to get people aligned in supporting the system. All of the public blockchains are based on this concept of economic incentives, and all of the cryptocurrencies are based on the combination of strong cryptography and economic incentives. So when we say mechanism design, what we mean is that we're using economic theory to design rules or mechanisms that produce a certain outcome, right? So in game theory, the dominant strategy for a player was always to bid to their true value. We could spend a lot of time talking about that. But unlike traditional game theory, and where blockchain really differs, the mechanisms from cryptoeconomics that are used to create the economic incentives are built using software and systems that are almost always distributed or decentralized. So in other words, the community itself is creating these rules and creating these incentives and being incentivized to support the system. So let me give you some examples of what I mean by that, because I know that's very abstract. So I'm going to bring that down the abstraction ladder a little bit. Consensus protocols, right? So how do we verify in blockchain? Well, we do it through consensus. And we don't rely on a central trusted authority. We rely on basically the wisdom of the masses. And how do we do that? Through a proof of work system, or a proof of stake system, rather. So you'll find in our prior discussions of this, we describe proof of work in great detail. That is a cryptoeconomic system where we provide incentives, because whoever proves the work ends up profiting from it. We provide incentives for supporting the system. There are a couple other examples here: application design and state channels, moving transactions off the blockchain. But I think the consensus protocol is the best example of a cryptoeconomic application that I can think of. So Bitcoin, why is it a cryptoeconomy in itself? So, as I said, Bitcoin's innovation was achieved using a combination of economic incentives and a basic cryptographic tool. So there were costs or penalties, by the way, in their security model, and that is just the cost of proof of work. In fact, it's one of the negative factors in Bitcoin is that there is so much cost in terms of use of energy in proving the work and creating the consensus. But nevertheless, there's costs in that security model, and that's what makes it secure. That's a cryptoeconomic incentive. Similarly, there's a cryptoeconomic reward for anybody who solves the puzzle. So these protocols are what really builds a reliable, secure system like Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So as I said, cryptoeconomics uses cryptography and economic incentives to produce a consensus that couldn't exist before. Blockchains, they don't necessarily rely on design to produce consensus, and thinking about the space through the lens of cryptoeconomics is really helpful in understanding it.